Full time at the San Siro, and it has finished 2-0 to Liverpool as they beat the Italian reigning champions Inter Milan in their own backyard of the Champions League. A header from substitute Roberto Firmino opened the scoring for the Reds before the ever-reliable Mohamed Salah stabbed in a second, as the Reds take a massive advantage into the second leg of the last 16 tie. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Debrief live on the Blood Red channel with myself, Patrick Smith. And I'm glad to be joined by Matt Addison. Matt, that was a nervy one, wasn't it? But what a result for Liverpool.
Yeah, it's a brilliant result, isn't it? It's a result that should be enough to put them into the next round. It's obviously one of those where away goals don't count anymore, but certainly 2-0 is a scoreline that you would have taken, really. I'd like to point out that I did predict that on the podcast as well. I've finally got one of those score predictions right. So, yeah, it was a good night all round, really, for Liverpool. I think possibly 2-0 flatters them a little bit. I think that's probably fair to say. I think there was, a good couple of chances really for Inter to make it a little bit more of it. Obviously, Liverpool had their own as well, where certainly in the first half they didn't quite look like knitting together enough of the play. But listen, when you've got players like Salah and Firmino and Diaz who looked good when he came on, I mean, they had to be clinical if they were going to win that game. And they've managed to do that twice. They've given themselves a really commanding lead, and I think over the course of it, they probably deserved to get that positive result. Whether 2 goals was maybe a bit more of a margin than Inter will probably feel was fair, but yeah, I think we knew that Liverpool were the better team going into it. I think there was that 10-minute spell, wasn't there, after half time, where Inter looked like they were going to put Liverpool under pressure, but they managed to get through that. Defended really well. I think Virgil van Dijk was excellent. Ibrahim Konate as well was brilliant next to him. So yeah, good performances all round really for Liverpool, and obviously to go and get not just 1 goal but 2 goals at the other end, I think is really important. So yeah, no complaints at all really from tonight.
Yeah, we have to be fair to Inter. They did have that spell, didn't they, in the start of the second half. I don't know how they didn't score, to be honest. But the defensive heroics from the boys, we scored 2 goals, but I'm most impressed by the defensive performance today, Matt. How do you think Ibrahim Konate and Van Dijk played?
Yeah, really, really good. I thought both of them put in, a good couple of blocks. I think there was a couple of moments really where we saw Virgil van Dijk back to his best, really. I think that's the first time we've seen him be as good as what he was tonight. There was that one against Lautaro Martinez where he was sort of 10 yards in front of him, and Martinez just didn't really know what to do. He didn't fancy going around him. Tried to have a bit of a go at him, but Van Dijk just sort of brushed him off and won the ball back. And then a couple of minutes after that in the first half as well, there was that one with Edin Dzeko where he gets sort of 5-6 yard head start on him, and Van Dijk just accelerates past him and just gets his body in the way. I know Edin Dzeko is not exactly the fastest player on the planet, but in terms of the position he was on the pitch, it was still impressive from Van Dijk. So yeah, I think there was a lot of decent performances in terms of the defence. Those two, really, really commanding and did really well. And we mentioned the sort of 10 or 15 minutes after half time, it was both of those two really that stood up and be counted. So yeah, I think it was a good performance from both of them. I think it was probably a slight surprise for some people that Matip didn't start, but I think from what we've seen from Ibrahim Konate tonight, I don't think anyone can have any complaints really.
Well, we're certainly under the cosh, weren't we? And that headed goal from Firmino was more a feeling of relief, wasn't it? How important was that for Liverpool? But also, how important was that goal for Firmino?
Yeah, I thought he had a strange sort of game, really. I'm not 100% sure whether there was a little bit of an injury to Diogo Jota. Maybe that's why he came off. We'll, I'm sure, find that out in the post-match press conference to come in a few minutes' time. But I think it was certainly an interesting one. We know what Roberto Firmino at his best brings to this Liverpool team. It's kind of that ability to knit things together, to press. And I didn't think he did particularly well in terms of either of those things, to be honest, tonight. But then he does what Diogo Jota does in terms of not really being involved, not seeing much of the ball, but then just popping up with an important goal. So, yeah, it was a strange performance from him. It was a performance, like I say, that you'd probably more associate with Jota than Firmino, ironically. But yeah, it was a brilliant header, wasn't it? Right into the corner, perfect cross into the box, perfect header. Even if that had been the only goal of the game, I think Liverpool would be delighted. The fact that they went and got one more after that, I think, just sort of seals it, really. I think it was a good performance. It could have been more clinical. It could have been better. But I think the fact that they've gone there and won 2-0 in a really difficult place to go, really intense atmosphere. Firmino obviously is important and crucial in terms of that, one or two others as well. I think it's just a really impressive performance from a lot of players really, they weren't at the best, but they still managed to go there and in the end win by a scoreline at least that looks fairly comfortable. So yeah, certainly it was an important goal and even more important for Liverpool to get that second.
Well, it was a pinpoint cross from Andy Robertson, wasn't it? He's someone who impressed me tonight. Fantastic performance yet again from him in the Champions League. But Trent on the other one, it wasn't the best of nights for him, was it? He was busy in the week, shall we say, with his comments regarding Man City and their failure to lift the Champions League trophy. But he was a bit away from it tonight, Matt, wasn't he?
Yeah, he wasn't perfect. I think he was okay. I think he didn't particularly do anything dreadfully bad or anything, but I think there was, certainly a fair few attacks, I think, down that side. I think it was a kind of conscious decision really from Inter and their manager to kind of put all of the pressure down that side. And I think, it's logical that that's the case, isn't it? We know that Trent AlexanderArnold's better going forward than he is defensively. We know he takes up those kind of positions in terms of being high up the pitch. And there are going to be teams that look at that side of the pitch. Obviously, Trent seen as a kind of weakness to an extent, but also the fact that you're not on the same side as Van Dijk probably helps in terms of making their mind up in terms of that as well. So, yeah, look, it's not a massive surprise, is it? I think, obviously Inter got in a couple of times. Trent did get skinned a couple of times, didn't he, on that side? But it wasn't a poor performance, I don't think, from him. Obviously, it's one to watch out for. I think in the second leg, I thought even Perisic was pretty good tonight. Probably Inter's most
I was going to say, I think
threat, I would say.
He was very, very difficult to deal with. I think Trent actually didn't do too badly because he really impressed me, Perisic.
Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it? I think a lot of people will look at it and say that he's maybe got done a couple of times, but when you're playing against a player who's that good and that quick with his feet, I think it's inevitably going to happen once or twice, isn't it? So yeah, wasn't a poor performance, wasn't his best, but I think for Liverpool to have kept a clean sheet, I think says a lot about what that back four and the goalkeeper as well did as a collective, if you like.
Of course, I believe as well, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was Harvey Elliott's first Champions League start, and baptism of fire away at the San Siro. Arturo Vidal, Brozovic, these amazing midfielders. He sort of struggled a bit, Matt, doesn't he? We all have Harvey Elliott, but do you think it was maybe the wrong game to start him in?
I don't know. It's an interesting one. I think he did okay. I think Naby Keita and Jordan Henderson, when they came on, looked a lot better, and Liverpool had a bit more of the sort of control, which is interesting in itself, given that Fabinho was taken off, which was a slightly odd decision. But Harvey Elliott, first Champions League start. It's I think the youngest ever Liverpool player to start in the Champions League in the actual tournament, excluding the qualifiers. So yeah, it was a slight surprise to an extent, but then it's not really a surprise when you think of the quality that he's got. I think what Jurgen Klopp would have been thinking is that there was an opportunity really for Harvey Elliott to kind of help keep hold of the ball, help create a few chances. Obviously, Inter, were obviously not going to come out and be gung-ho, but there was going to be a few opportunities for him to find a couple of gaps, find a bit of space and try and find a ball into Salah or Jota. It didn't quite happen for him. I think, Arturo Vidal that he was coming up against is a very experienced player, shall we say. I'm sure there's a few other words I'm sure there's a few other phrases that you can use around him. But yeah, I think... it wasn't a perfect performance from him, but it was a performance of an 18-year-old who was playing his first Champions League knockout game, his first Champions League game, full stop. And yeah, there'll be a lot more to come, I think, from Harvey Elliott in this competition. And it wouldn't massively surprise me if he started in the second leg, to be honest. I don't think that'll be anything to put Liverpool off. I think it was just a difficult game for him to come into. It wasn't a game where loads of people impressed. I mean, as much as Salah and Firmino scored the goals, it wasn't like they were, completely all over Inter as well. I think it would have been a lot easier, certainly for Harvey Elliott, had Liverpool as a team been more on top. The fact it was a bit hectic, the fact Inter were probably better than quite a few people maybe expected going into it, probably didn't suit him perfectly. But yeah, similar to Trent almost, in that I think he did okay. Could do better, but certainly wasn't poor.
Well, you touched on it there. Mohamed Salah is back in a Liverpool shirt and he's back on a Liverpool score sheet. How important is that for him, Matt? Because he's not scored in the past couple of games, which for him is weird.
Yeah, I think it's always something, isn't it, that he'll have his eye on all of the records. He'll know that if he continues to do what he's been doing this season, then Liverpool have a really good chance, really, of going into the last couple of months of the season, possibly with a trophy already in the Carabao Cup and a couple more to come after that, hopefully. So, yeah, I think it was important. He didn't do a huge amount within the game. I think Inter dealt with him pretty well. I think before the game, certainly I was looking at it and thinking that if you've got Perisic playing as a wing back, possibly that is not the ideal player to be kind of coping with Mohamed Salah. But to be fair, I thought the three Inter centre backs were really good. It's a formation that doesn't always work against Liverpool. We've seen a three at the back maybe not go so well against Liverpool in the past, but I thought they defended really well tonight. Actually, Inter, there was obviously those couple of moments where they don't particularly do well, and Liverpool take advantage of them to score the goals. But on the whole, I thought they were pretty good. So again, it wasn't the easiest sort of game to play in for Mohamed Salah. But yeah, again, if you score a goal, he's a step closer, I think, to becoming Liverpool's Champions League top scorer and all of that sort of thing. It's always going to play on his mind, I think. Look, if Liverpool had won 1-0 and he hadn't have scored, I'm sure he'd be pretty happy. But the fact that he has scored, it'll just be a little extra confidence boost, won't it? And it'll be one of those to keep an eye on. I think there'll be a fair few more to come before the end of the season.
Yeah, it's just that little boost we needed just before the second leg at Anfield, isn't it? But what a result for Jurgen Klopp's side. It wasn't easy, it wasn't pretty, but the only thing that matters is the result as we look to progress in the Champions League. Thank you very much for joining me, Matt Addison. We'll be back again with the debrief on Saturday following Liverpool against Norwich in the Premier League, so be sure to keep up to date with the Blood Red YouTube channel. But until then, it's goodbye for now.